Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 299 of the Board Game Barbecue podcast, brought to you by Advent Games and our Patreons. My name is Lauren. I'll be your host for this evening, and I'm joined by two absolute rabble-rousers. I've got over in the Sydney chair, Mitch. Mitch, how you going?
I'm doing very, very well. Looking forward to this. It's going to be crazy, so buckle up.
Yeah, it's going to devolve very quickly because we also have Dan, all the way in Victoria. Dan, how are you?
I'm bringing the rabble and Mitch is bringing the rousing.
Here we go.
Hey, Laura, how are you?
Yeah, good. Cold, but good.
Rebel rousing for our age group, though, Dan, is wearing coloured shoes.
Yeah.
That's about the extent of it, getting right out there and going crazy.
And telling the kids to get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Going to bed at 10:30, having caffeine after 4 p.m. Here we go.
Whew. So when we get
Settle
home
down.
from the early bird special at 4:30.
Exactly.
All right. Shall we get stuck into some games, though?
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
That's always a good shout. Mitch,
Yeah.
you've been playing many games that I've never played, and
Yeah,
some
right.
that I know very little about. What's been hitting your table?
A few things, actually. I've been playing a little bit. The first one I'll mention is something that we've got in that we're going to have the opportunity to teach and show people at PlayCon. And it hasn't really... I don't think it's released here yet. I'm not even sure if it's released overseas yet. I don't know. But I haven't seen it anywhere, and there's not a lot about it around the traps, but there's a bit of buzz for it. And that is Windmill Valley.
Mm.
Yeah, so this arrived at my house, as I said, in preparation for PlayCon. I think it's going to be part of the library. And Jules came over and we said, let's get into this and let's learn it so we can teach it at PlayCon and we can understand the game a little bit. So we sat down and we had a game, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's a rondel kind of game, or like Zolkin with the gears. So you have your little, I suppose that's supposed to sort of represent the windmill gears going around and so forth, and they interact, they sort of interlock with each other. And on your turn, you're deciding first of all how high you're going to set the water levels, because you can choose to do that at the start of your turn, and however high you choose to do that will mean you have to spin your wheels further. So if you keep it low, then you can spin. So you kind of can see which actions are coming up on your wheel, and then make your decisions around what actions you want to take next and what's going to be available based on how far your wheel's going to spin. And where the wheels stop, you'll have two actions then that are available. You can choose one, or as you upgrade them as the game goes on, some will let you do both. One of the dials is bigger than the other, so they don't turn at the same speed. So you won't always get the same pair of action combinations that come up. So it's kind of cool. And with that, you can then also upgrade each of the wedges in your wheel. So one of the actions you can take is upgrade your wedges, and you can choose which slots you want to slide into and upgrade. So you kind of, not only are you choosing which upgrades you want to do to improve your actions, but also where you want to place them so that they then align with other actions on the other wheel, and so on. So that to me was the funnest part of the game, is managing those wheels and the cogs and the upgrades and as you're going along. But ultimately, it's a bit of a point salad game where there's different ways you can put your windmills out into the gardens. You can collecting tulips to put into your player board, which is a garden bed. Different combinations of how you put your tulips into the garden bed will score you different points. And it's funny because I always say I don't really like super tight games because I feel I'm not smart enough. Let's be honest. That's why I don't like them.
If you didn't say it, we were going to.
I'm not smart enough to enjoy them, because I'm kind of like, I guarantee you I will do something dumb and stupid, and then I find myself in a position that I'm just constantly digging myself out of holes that I've put myself in, and I don't enjoy that.
Yep.
And those tight games where it kind of pins you right down. It's like, well, I don't really have a lot of choices because I made bad decisions in my last turn, so now I'm really limited in it. I just don't find that fun. This game, I didn't feel that at all. I felt there was always something cool and interesting to do, and yeah, it's just a different sort of mechanic with options and cool bits that move, and a different sort of. It's something I haven't really experienced before. I haven't played Zolkin before, so I'll say that. But those who have played both say that, even though they do have wheels, they're a very different game.
Yeah, cool. Because As you were saying, the two wheels that have the different sizes, so you're not getting the same set of actions. The first thing I thought was, in that game, I would definitely be like planning for this combination of actions that was actually never going to come because I, in my head, messed up the spatial puzzle. Did you find that at all?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things I did with messing up the spatial puzzle. First of all, you always will get to do the actions because they go around so fast.
Right.
So, it's relatively quickly. So you're always going to get them coming around. You'll probably get the actions come around 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times. And that's also controlled by you because if you put the water level up, your wheel turns further. So then it's turning quicker and it's going around the circle quicker. That also times the rounds. So you can kind of control the speed of the game and how fast it's moving as well. Almost like Great Western Trail. With Great Western Trail, you can choose to move further, more spaces. You don't have to go to every building.
Yeah, you can just bolt to Kansas.
Yeah, so you're in control of kind of how fast the game moves along.
But when you say you mean you as in collectively as everyone who's playing.
But individually, because you've all got your own wheel board.
Right, okay.
So, so you might get through and complete the first cycle quickly, maybe in 2 turns, whereas the other person might take 4 or 5 turns. So it's that, and there are bonuses for getting to certain stages first. You'll pick up a bonus for being the first person there. So it's kind of like that trade-off. Do I go slowly so I make sure I get through all of my actions and I get to execute all the things that I've maybe upgraded? Or do I want to push the water level up, go a little bit faster and get to the end of the calendar cycles quicker, which get me bonuses? It's kind of an interesting sort of trade-off, right? It's a decision space to be had there. But in terms of what I did that was stupid, I upgraded my tile. So your small wheel starts off with all of the actions on the small wheel are the same at the start of the game. So it doesn't really matter what's on your second wheel because you're kind of like, well, it's going to be the same anyway. So my sort of thought was, well, let's start upgrading that one because then I'll get whatever the good actions are on the big wheel, and I'll start getting some other good actions on the small wheel as well. So when I upgraded the small wheel, I placed it in the spot where I thought that will come up on my next turn because as the wheel turns, but as you said with that spatial thing and me being a moron, turning the left wheel doesn't turn the right wheel the same way. It actually goes in the opposite direction.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, as soon as I turned it, I went, oh, it's actually as far away as possible. It's not the next turn. And Jules just laughed at me for being a goose. Now, I'm not sure if he noticed I was being a goose and just didn't say anything. It's a possibility. But we did have a chuckle about how stupid I was. It was very funny. But yeah, it is cool. It's bright. It's, I think it's a theme that people will get into. It's engaging. I think it's a really good game. I think it could be quite well received and up there. I wouldn't call it heavy. It's not the Serta level, but at the same time, it's also not like that's not a hat level. It's kind of that mid-weight. I'd compare it to like Everdell-ish around there sort of weight, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Mm. But yes, it's really cool. I'd suggest if you get a chance to check it out, and you will get a chance at PlayCon.
Absolutely. So that was Windmill Valley. It's funny that you mentioned Sulkin, because Sulkin, you're putting your workers out in cogs that move in a very predictable way. And then it's just how long do you want to leave it on the cog before you take it back? And the longer you leave it, the higher it'll tick up and the more you'll get when you eventually take it back.
Right. Almost a little bit push your lucky.
Yeah, a little bit push your luck and a little bit about how far can I take this before I need to recall and then place there before that guy places there. So there's a little bit of kind of timing and eyeing what other people are doing. So, naturally can't do that. But I did paint the cogs and they do look nice.
Yeah.
So.
I think I remember seeing you. Did you put them on Discord once upon a time when you painted them?
I think I might have done. I know Adrian also did, and you can get these nice little like 3D printed bits for all the different cogs.
No, I've seen it back when it was everyone was playing it, everyone was talking about it. I saw a lot of people in that community post there. They were very proud of their Aztecian style painted wheels, and they look amazing.
I'm surprised more games haven't used this kind of mechanism, this idea of the board shifting and changing available actions and things like that, because it's really cool spatial puzzle.
The only other one that I can think of is Teletum, was one of the T games where it has a six-sided or 6 cogs 6 slices of a wheel that
Segments?
rotates. Segments. That's the word I was looking for. 6 segments of a wheel, and then it's the inner and the outer, and it adds up to 7. So if it's I think it's coins and then resources. So if it's 6, then you get one plus 1. If it's 3, then it's plus 4, and that rotates every round as well.
Yeah, neat. Dan, what have you been playing?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of family games actually since the last time I was on. And one that's hit the table quite a lot actually has been Dragon Keepers. Now we were fortunate enough to get a copy of this from VR, and Dragon Keepers is a really interesting sort of twist on the old set collection genre. You're collecting dragons, and there's all different things that you can that bonuses you get when you collect the dragon. All those bonuses are for points, and the main one is there's 3 segments to an amulet, and once you collect all 3 segments, which in their own right are actually worth points, then you can take a gem and pop it in the middle, and all the gems are actually turned face down the table. So you're getting a bonus for completing all 3 parts of the amulet, but then you don't know what the gem is actually going to be worth. In fact, there's 3 gems that are red, and they're the higher value ones. They always go first, and then the other ones go second. But the way you actually collect it is by getting sets of dragons of a particular color. And there's the decks. There's 2 decks of cards that are face down on the table, and on the backs of them, they present the left and right hand side of a book, and the left hand side is the number or the objective of how many dragons, and the right hand side is the color. So it might say 3 red. So if you at the end of your turn can play 3 red dragons out of your hand, then you'll get the bonus. And it goes from 2, I think, to 6, and there's other ways to actually get even more than that. But the better the higher the number, the better the reward. It might be that you just get the lowest fragment of an amulet. It might be that you get the highest fragment of an amulet. So that might be worth 20 points just in that little fragment. There's other things where you can get crystals, and the crystals you can then redeem later on to mitigate your hand and get other things. But interesting thing is you flip both of the decks face up to show the dragons, and you can collect 1, 2, or 3 dragons. And then when you take a dragon, you flip the next page so it's face up. So every time you do that, you're changing the objectives in the book. So the objective, or the recipe, if you like, of what is showing on the backs of those cards changes every time. And so it might say 3 red, and then you'll take a dragon, and so you take that red card, turn it face up, and now it says 3 blue. And then you might take the left-hand dragon because you want that for your hand. And so you've got to take that 3 and flip it to the dragon side. And now it says 5 blue. And so you can take 1, 2, or 3 dragons. And then once you've taken those dragons in your hand, then your opportunity to play them to the table. And if you meet the criteria of what's on that book, then you get the bonus. If you don't, you have an opportunity to put 1 dragon back face down as to change the instructions, to change the objective on the back of that book. So if you had a handful of green dragons, but the objective was that said 5 red, you can put a card back that's going to change that red to green, and now it says 5 green. You go, I've got 5 green in my hand. And then you play them, and you get the bonus that the 5 actually allows you to do. As I said, the higher the number, the better the bonus. The other little wrinkle is there's 4 different colors. And when you put the green ones down in front of you, next time you play green dragons, you just put them on that pile. Or you can put a different color down. So you might put blue ones down. When you put a third pile down, depending on where you put it, you're only allowed to add to the outermost piles that you've formed on your. So if I've got blue and I've got green, and then I want to put red down, I can no longer add to my green ones. I've kind of locked that color out. So if you can get by on just doing the 2 different colors, then that's fine. Because if you start putting a third color down, you've locked out 1 color. Same as if you put the 4th color down, now you've got 2 colors that you've locked out completely. And so if that's all that's left in the deck, or that's what you keep drawing, you're not going to be able to use them because you've completely locked that color out. There is a bonus. The first 3 people to actually shoot the moon and play all 4 different colors get a reward, which again decreases over time. The first person who grabs it, I think it's worth 12 points. Next person is 8, and the last person is 4. But if you're playing 4 players, the 4th person gets pubcus. And there's one other scoring thing where there's these there's little yellow eggs that are worth 4 points, and whoever gets the most yellow eggs by the end of the game, they get to flip one of theirs over, and it's actually worth 16.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a bit. There's all different ways to actually earn points. It's a bit point salady, but it's an interesting spin on the whole set collection thing, because what you can cash in is determined by the book, but you can actually hand some cards back or hand a card back to change the book so that it suits you. So it's very rare that more often than not, you can play something, or you can at least change what you can play so that you can then actually play it, rather than just going, oh, I can't. That says 5 blue. I don't have any blue. So I don't have 5. I can't play. The good thing though is that there's no hand limit. So
you can kind of stock up on cards and then like do some big runs
and then go bang 6.
Yeah,
and if you play 6, you actually get another dragon, which is like a wild dragon. But the wild, the wild obviously helps you meet higher criteria to higher objectives. But you can also put it face down on the deck as well, which then is going to be worth more points if that becomes a 6 of something, and there's big benefits to getting the 6. So you can use it as a wild or put it on the book, but then there's a chance that someone else can take it. So yeah, no, it's a really cool, really fun game. I played it. I taught it to the boys, and then I was out somewhere, and they got it down from the shelf, and they taught my wife how to play. They played a couple of times with her. So then when I came home the next day, played it 4 players a couple of times, and it's just really light, really fun. It's over in about half an hour. It doesn't sort of outstay its welcome. And yeah, a lot of fun. So if you've got young kids, I definitely recommend giving Dragon Keepers a go. And the dragons are really, really cute. The artwork's really nice. When you lay them out in front of you side by side, I only noticed it the second or third time we played it, but the horizon is the exact same level. So it almost looks like a landscape of these dragons that just lines up perfectly, which is kind of cool. But yeah,
nice.
It's Dragon Keepers.
Very cool. I feel like you've always got another light family weight game to introduce to me, Dan.
Yeah, and this is really cool. I mean, I've been getting a few. I've got a few on my wish list that I want to get. I still want to get Wandering Towers to play with the boys. I think that they'd really, really like that one. But yeah, Dragon Keepers is keeping us going for the moment.
Awesome. Well, I'll jump in next. I played a game that has been a bit trickier to get, but is getting or just got a really lovely reskin, and that is Yokohama. Have either of you played Yokohama?
No.
I don't think so. I always get confused between Yokohama and Tokaido.
Yeah, Tokaido is the one where you're kind of journeying through
Japan, through the trail, and you can't go backwards and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So that's Tokaido. Yokohama is a point salad Euro. It has similar mechanisms to Istanbul, if you've ever played that, of kind of dropping and running your workers along the different spots. So you're dropping workers in different spots, or like little kind of tokens almost. And they're all different actions. And then you got this big grande worker who needs to travel along a path of your mini workers, and then wherever you decide to stop, you grab all them, and that's the strength of the action you perform there.
Yeah, right. So you're kind of making a trail with your workers.
You kind of got to make trails through the action. So you've got a plan to be able to drop workers in ways that, makes a consistent trail to where you want to go, but also through actions that you're also going to want to take. Otherwise, it's wasteful to put them there. And then you also can't land on the spot that someone else's grande worker is on. Right. Or if you want to place your little guys where the big person's grande worker is, you got to pay them. So there's a little bit of blocking and jostling for position as well. It was a pretty interesting point salad Europe. I played it at 2-player. The new reprint version had really beautiful art and really beautiful metal coins. It was just a lush, lovely production. Nice. And I can't say too much about it because I've only played it once. But if you like Istanbul, I think you'll like Yokohama. If anyone has played one and hasn't played the other, I think they kind of have enough DNA between them. And you're just racing to get contracts, to get goals. You can also build houses in the little action spots, and then you make the actions cheaper or more or stronger, or people have to pay you for it. So there's a nice interactive Euro, but not in a way that feels too mean, but enough that if you want to be able to you want to have to consider the other people at the table, but you don't want them to be able to totally destroy what you've done. Yeah. I feel like Yokohama hits that spot pretty well.
So it's not a game for Jules then, because he doesn't like to consider anyone ever.
Yeah, no.
No. I just had massive deja vu when you were talking about that game. I'm thinking, have I heard Lauren talk about this before? And I have, because you were telling me about it before you recorded our Patreon pod during the week.
Oh, right.
Yes,
That's
yes,
what
that's true.
I was almost going to ask the same question that I asked during the week as well, so I won't embarrass myself asking any more stupid questions. But yeah, no, it's cool. It sounds really, really good.
Yes, that was pretty interesting. I
Yeah.
also got the chance to play Distilled, which has been talked about on the podcast before. I know Dana sizzled it on her very first podcast, I believe. So got the chance to play that with my brother and his wife and my partner James. And it was just lovely. Like we all really like the theme of making alcohol. It was a really pleasant theme. I thought I would find, because you're drafting cards that you make into a little deck, and you decide which ones you're going to kind of shuffle together, and then you discard the top and bottom, and whatever's left,
Yeah,
you
that's
make your
really
drink.
clever.
That's the twist for it, isn't it?
I thought I wasn't going to like that because I was like, oh, it's so random. I'm, trying to craft this deck, and then I just have to lose two things. But it was really cool. It was pretty thematic. I liked that you add flavor cards to things that are aging, but you don't get to see what the flavors are until you taste them. And it was always fun. I don't often read flavor text in games because I don't really care for it, but we were all reading what the flavors of our drinks were that we brewed. James managed to make a whiskey that was smoky and had orange peel, and I had some Band-Aid flavored gin. It was lovely.
Nice. I think I've been to that bar.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to knock 3 times and say a password.
Serve it in a boot.
It was really charming. I don't think I would play it at 4-player again. It probably ran a drop long at 4. I think 2 or 3 would be a nice.
Are you intentionally doing all these whiskey and
Drink puns?
The drinking puns?
Ran a drop long?
The flavor text and ran a drop long.
I wish I could tell you I was that clever. That is certainly not the case.
Very impressed.
But I will be on the eye for those now. No, so it was very charming. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think it's, this intensely strategic game. You can't it's quite tight though, actually. You don't have a lot of money, you can't do a lot of things. That being said, me saying it's not strategic, my sister-in-law basically doubled my score. Right. So I'm sure there is
a lot of strategy in it. You just didn't see any of it.
Yeah, I was not accessing that. Yeah. I was just off sipping my wine. I was tequila. I was on a grand all time. So yeah, that was Distilled, really lovely, and you can go check out Dana's Sizzle if you want to hear more about it. Mitch, we got to hear our weekly plug for a GMT game.
Well, I'll just say this is the game I've been spending more time on lately than any other. And we mentioned BGA before, or maybe we did before we started.
Yes, before we started recording.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's my memory. It's that Alzheimer's kicking in. We've all talked in the past about BGA and Tabletopia and whatever the other one is,
Tabletop Simulator.
TTS.
Yep.
Yeah. Of which I don't really get into a lot, if I'm honest. I don't do a lot of online board gaming. But there's a new dog in the yard. And that's Rally the Troops, which is essentially an online version for GMT games.
Yeah, right.
And when I say we, I'm talking about myself, Def, Jace, and Daniel. Jason Daniel from the community have been playing Andean Abyss, which is the first in the series of coin games that were released. And it's to do with the insurrection and the uprising in Colombia. Pretty sure it's Colombia. Yeah. So, and yeah, it's phenomenal. The implementation of the online system is so good. It might be better than any I've seen. It's just done so well. And we're talking a game here that's pretty complex in terms of the mechanics and how it works. Def's talked about coin games. Coin games are phenomenal. Anyone who's ever played Root or any of these asymmetrical sort of war-ish type conflict games, the coin games are the granddaddy of that. This was where it sort of come from. And Rally the Troops just makes everything so easy to do. You can you start the game by choosing your factions. It's got the player aids, which are very important in a coin game to tell you what operations are available and how they actually play out. Is all there online as well. You can review that all digitally, and then what makes it great is, so in coin, you quite often you will say, "Oh, I want to deploy troops," and then there'll be a procedure around where you can deploy troops based on your faction. So, for example, if I'm playing the insurgent faction, the guerrillas uprising against the government, I can't deploy troops in regions where the government has the support of the population, right? Because, well, I'm just not very liked there. So getting troops into those regions is not easy. So one of the hardest things about playing a coin game on the table is when you're making these decisions about where you're going to take your actions, you have to understand the procedures and then be able to go, well, that's a valid spot, that's a valid spot, that's a valid spot, working out all, those sorts of things based on the criteria for whatever operation you're trying to perform. Rally the Troops does it all for you. So you choose which action you want to take. You'll say, I want to rally and deploy troops. And on the map, it goes, boop, and it highlights the regions where that action is eligible. And then you can just go blip, 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 and drop your troops in there and away you go. Or you choose, I'm going to march. And it says, well, which region do you want to march to? And you go blip, and it goes, these are the guerrillas that are available to march to that area. And these sorts of things. So it's very, very simple. It simplifies the game a great deal. The purpose of us jumping on and playing was because we were going to teach Jace and Daniel how to play. They hadn't played and they were interested, so we jumped onto our Discord and said, does anyone want to learn? We're going to jump into a game. And they put their hands up, and we played the first game, and I was playing I'm going to say this carefully, I was playing the FARC, which is FARC.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the primary insurgent guerrilla faction, which is trying to overthrow the government and gain support of the population. And Def was playing the cartels, who are the ones that are there to grow and sell drugs and make heaps of resources. Daniel was playing the government, who are trying to obviously hold on to control and quell the insurgency. And Jace was playing the other guerrilla faction, who are kind of somewhat aligned with the government, and trying to assist with keeping down the uprising.
Are they a cough?
They're actually, I don't know if I can say this. You're doing the edit, Dan, so you can bleep this out if you want. They're actually called the AUC, which if you were to read that, I would say that's Orc. Correct?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the second game we played, I might be jumping ahead here a little bit, but in the second game we played, I actually had a secret alliance with Jace. I messaged Jace and said, let's team up, because the two insurgent factions probably shouldn't team up. They've got entirely different conflicting priorities. But I said, let's just do this for fun. We'll team up against Def and Daniel and, make sure one of us wins. And he was like, yeah, okay, we'll do that. So we did that. And our alliance was and awkward.
That's outstanding.
So yes, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, we played the first game. Look, I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but I blitzed everyone. The FARC just went on absolute rampage, and pretty soon enough, when we met our target, which was my target, is to get a certain amount of population and also a certain number of bases across the regions. And then everyone at the end of the first game was like, "Let's go again right now." So we teed it all up and we went again. And in the second game, Jace won. But we played that maybe over 3 or 4 days, because on Rally the Troops, there's no choosing whether you want to play real time or asynchronous or whatever. It just plays. And if you say, "Oh, I got to go, guys, I got to step away for a minute, we'll come back to this later," well, then it just goes into asynchronous, and it will just wait for you to take your turn. So there's no sort of time limits on that. You don't have to choose to do it live or anything. So a couple of times we were like, is everyone available? Yeah, let's all jump on now. So we'd all jump on. We'd play maybe 30, 40 minutes real time, where we're all playing together on the board, and we talked in Discord. And then, someone had to leave or couldn't continue. So we went, right, we'll just jump off and we'll keep playing it asynchronous. So, it's a brilliant system. At the moment, there's a bunch of different GMT games on there. I
was going to ask you how many of the catalogue are on there.
There's a bunch of GMT games. The Ant in Abyss is the only coin game at the moment.
Okay.
So if you're specifically looking for coin, Ant in Abyss is the only option. but it's phenomenal. It's one I really, really enjoy it, and I probably think it's the best place to jump in at in terms of the coin system. A lot of people say Cuba Libre because it's a smaller map and there's a couple of little things that are sort of a bit more refined. But yeah, Andean Abyss is just so good. It is really, really good. So if anyone's out there and has ever had a dream or a desire to jump in and learn coin or have a look at the coin system, and you're in our community, just call out because it's super easy to set up. I'm sure myself or Def or anyone else who was new to games and wanted to have a game would be willing to jump in and teach people. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So Andean Abyss is probably the most time I've spent this week playing board games, and it was online, which is unusual for me.
That's good. Yeah, I'd be keen to check it out, particularly if you say it's a good entry level for the coins. I've never played a coin game before, so
Yeah,
I'd be keen.
neither have I, and I've heard Cuba Libre is a good introduction to the series, and I really wanted to try that, but I could never justify owning it.
Yeah, well, give Andean Abyss a go. I actually would prefer, like, if I had to sit down and say which would you play right now, I would choose Andean Abyss over Cuba Libre. Just because Cuba Libre is obviously it's Cuba, so it's relatively small in terms of the map, and just the dynamics. I prefer Andean Abyss, the way that the factions all interact and so on. So yeah, definitely a good one to get started with, I would say. There are a couple of things that they've improved in because Andean Abyss is the first in the series.
Yeah,
so there's a couple of little things that they've improved, just around like the way they have. I'm sure Def's explained it before. Propaganda cards are kind of like you draw an event card every round, and eventually there's propaganda cards that are sort of spaced throughout the deck. When you get a propaganda card, you do like a end of round summary. You check win conditions and those sorts of things. You reset the board a little bit, and then you continue on. So there's a little different way that the propaganda cards work now in the newer games in the series that is different for Andean Abyss, but I don't think it really changes the system to any significant degree. It's just different.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm definitely happy to broaden my horizons. I feel like you're doing the hard sell to get more coin gamers in the community. Just want a thriving.
One of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
I don't think coin is for everyone. Let's be honest. I think there's a few people in the Sydney community that I've spoken to and sort of said, "Oh, would you want to have this? Try this." No, I'm not into conflict games. I'm not into war games. That's fine. I get the theme can be a big turnoff for some people. The root theme of the cuddly animals and the cartoonish sort of whimsical nature of it sits better with them.
It makes more appealing, yeah.
Yeah, the reality of the coin games, because they're obviously steeped in history and actual things that happened. Talking about, you'll draw an event card that is, oh, Dan, you're the cartels. You get an opportunity to assassinate the leader of the FARC. It's like, it's pretty heavy topics. So.
We should probably mention as well that coin is short for counter-insurgencies.
Correct.
As well. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're not games and magicians do with with their fingers
or any sort of finance stuff. They are all sort of war related, but they're heavily steeped in history and historical events and stuff, which is why they're so attractive.
Yeah,
it's just a cool way to learn about parts of history that you didn't necessarily know heaps about.
Oh, 100%.
Like there's so many of these little wars and little parts of history. I feel like every week James and I are watching like a short docu-series to learn about these tidbits, and I feel like the games are much the same.
Well, I have to remember, was it Fire in the Lake, Mitch, that you set it up and then you just went down some rabbit hole learning all about?
I set up Fire in the Lake to learn it. I turned over the first event card, and the first event card that I had in the deck was you remember during the Vietnam War in South Vietnam, there was the monk who immolated himself in the street with it's the front cover of the Rage Against the Machine album.
Sure.
It's a very famous photograph. Well, that was the photograph on this card. And I turned it over and I looked at it and I was like, I know the photo. I know that, he was a monk and he was protesting and that was his cause. But I never understood the connection between him and the Vietnam War and the factions that were in play at the time. So I was like, okay, Well, before I get started, let me just do a little bit of reading online about this monk and the motivations and how he fits into the conflict. 3 hours later, I hadn't started playing yet. I just, looked this up, started reading about that article, something in that article triggered something else that I was like, okay, how did that factor in? And then I went and looked up that, and before you know it, I was doing this thing called internet surfing. I don't know if you've heard about it, Dave.
No.
On the interwebs.
Yes, the internet.
Is that what all the kids are doing these days?
Apparently.
Yeah.
TikTok.
Post 4 p.m. caffeine and just getting absolutely rowdy. Brilliant. So that was, Andean Abyss on Rally the Troops. There's one more game that I quickly wanted to mention. Because speaking of coaxing people into your side of the hobby, Def has told me that I am in fact a train gamer, and it's buried inside me, and I don't know it yet, but that part of me will come out. So the game is Prussian Rails, and it's going to be a future sizzle, but I just will say that it was a great cube game, and if you're after a simple cube game, it was just really good, really silly, really goofy, and very approachable. But yeah, so good.
That's funny because I would never use silly, goofy, approachable and train game in the same sentence. It doesn't seem to go together.
Well, it's a cube game. So like the Iron Rails, Iberian Gauge, Iris Gauge. It's that kind of game. So it's cubes and stocks. It's more a stock game than it is a train game. But you have chips, you buy shares in companies, and then if you own a share in that company, you get to put cubes down to connect some stations and pay money from the company's coffers to put those cubes out, and you just want to connect routes to get your companies to win the most. It's pretty pared back, but the thing that was a bit goofy about it was that if your income was the lowest, the way turns worked is you drew chips out of a bag, and if we're playing a 3-player game, you only draw 3 chips, and those are the turns that people get. If you have the lowest income, you have more of your chips in that bag. So it is possible that you could be the only person taking a turn that round.
Yeah, right.
And you could be, if you're coming first, you've only got 1 chip. And Harry, the poor sap, was last in income for so long, and just his chips weren't coming out. There were just rounds where the bag was loaded with green chips, and he was just missing rounds, and I feel like could be very polarizing. It could turn people off the game if you just get skipped. It's a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
But it made it quite funny. It was just a bit slapsticky almost, a bit ridiculous that Harry just didn't get a turn.
I'm not sure if that's the game as much as it is Harry. I haven't. I've played a lot of games with Harry that turn into goofy, silly slapstick. Yeah.
But it was raucous fun, and if you want to check any of the cube rail games, I think it might be my favorite that I played of that genre of games.
Yeah, nice.
So
when
you in the future,
when you did say goofy and silly, I thought you were going to say you buy shares and then you throw a foam salmon at someone. Something like that.
Yeah. There's you clonk them on the head with an inflatable hammer, and every time they speak.
Oh, dear.
What's that, Poetry for Neanderthals that has that one?
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
You can only talk in single syllable words, and
yeah, right.
If you don't get clocked on the head,
you smack them on the head with a inflatable.
What was it called? Exploding Kittens that has the cone of shame that you have to wear if you lose, which is like one of those things that you'd be like if the cat goes to the vet.
Oh, right.
It has a cone of its head, but it's for a human. It's pop on.
Mitch's wife puts one on him to stop him from licking himself.
It doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Oh my goodness.
We warned you, Lauren. We warned you.
It's true. It only took the first segment of the podcast, and we're already there. Well, with that, should we move on? Or Dan, did you want to talk about any of those games?
Happy just to name check some other games I've been playing with the boys. Been playing Hive with them. I kind of forget that kids they can.
Is that the game about where you show your boys the rashes you've developed over the last 3 days?
You did. I kind of forget how quickly they pick up sort of complicated concepts, because I mean Jack's been playing chess for a couple of years now, and Ollie's only 5, but I taught them Hive, and Ollie picked it up so fast. It's probably less. There's less different pieces than chess. I think there's only like
Mm.
5 different insects or 6 different insects. But he's been getting it out, and they've been playing just the 2 of them. I can just leave them alone. They don't even have to play it anymore. So we've been playing a bit of Hive, and also today we played a pretty intense game of, actually, see if you can guess what the game is. We all had sore fingernails by the end of it.
Was it anything to do with the story I told you before?
No, it wasn't. We were playing Ice Cool.
Oh, right, okay. That's the one with the penguins?
Flick those bloody penguins around the school and through the doorways and stuff. All of us were like, oh, now Jack had like a little bit of a bruise on one of his fingernails as well by the end of it. But it took ages. Like, it was super competitive. Normally I got the knack, and I can go around corners, and I can go through I can spin it around through 3 different doorways, and it took a while, but it was good fun. We cleared the tables away from the table. Sorry, we cleared the chairs away from the table, and we were just all trying to get the best angle, and it was like a pretty intense snooker game. So that was pretty fun. But no, just a lot of, like I said at the top of the show, I've been playing a lot of family games lately, which has been good fun.
Cool.
Brilliant. I've seen videos of people doing trick shots with Ice Cool where they just jump the walls and things like that.
Yeah,
It's
super intense. Yeah.
Who's playing that game enough to have bruised fingernails to be able to do trick shots?
This guy.
Yep.
This guy.
Yeah.
Board game night's getting stale? Yearning for an adventure beyond the roll of the dice? Board and Dice crafts unforgettable experiences. Imagine building a legendary city in Teotihuacan, energizing Saxony with Nucleum, or facing monstrous threats in SideQuest Nemesis. From expert Euro games to epic escape rooms in boxes, Board and Dice offers unique games for all players. Find your next obsession at Board and Dice. Visit boardanddice.com to explore their games.
All right, Mitch.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about the game that you're sizzling.
Yeah?
Because it is just the most fun I think I've had ever playing a game. And I want to hear the context that you played this game in.
Well, I'm glad you're going to contribute, because it's a simple game. There's not a lot of detail to explain with it. I'll give you a little bit of a history of how I got into it, because it's not a new game. It's been around for a long time. But I was coming out of this Christmas season. I was trying to look for games that I could buy, that I could bring to family occasions that were played with larger groups that everyone would enjoy. So we're thinking party games. Did a little bit of reviewing. I did a bit of a reading up. What would we like? What wouldn't really go down well with my family? And I stumbled upon Monikers. Now, to give everyone who doesn't know about the game, which would have been me up until about a week ago, how it works is you essentially split into 2 teams. You each get dealt a whole bunch of cards. From those cards, you choose a subset of cards. You go through the first that you get dealt with. You discard the ones you don't want to play with. You keep the ones that you want to play with. Everyone around the table then combines all the cards they chose into a deck that's shuffled all together. And then you take turns, one team at a time, going through essentially describing, or one person becomes like the clue giver, and the rest of your team are trying to guess what the answer is. So each of the cards has a name on it, or an item, or a thing, or a whatever, and you're trying to get your team to guess that thing. Now, there are 3 rounds. This is where the kicker comes in. There are 3 rounds to this game. In the first round, you can say or do whatever you want, except for using words that are in the name of the title. Everything else is on the table, including reading verbatim the description that is on the card of whatever the thing is. So you might, which I think is fantastic, because you might pull a card out and you go, I have no idea what that is. I don't know how to give a clue to that or whatever, especially when you're playing with I won't say kids, because some of the topics in the cards are definitely not kid friendly. So I'm not recommending that you use this with your young kids, but my youngest is 14. So when I say kids, I'm talking 14 up. But there's definitely some things on the cards that my kids would look at and go, I have no idea.
Yep.
For example, like David Hasselhoff, for example, which was one we had the other night. They had no idea who David Hasselhoff is. So in the first round, you can just literally, if you don't know anything else to do, you can just literally read the description that's printed on the card to try and get your team to guess what the card is. For every card that you get, when you get one right, you put it to the side. If you get it wrong, it goes back in the deck and you continue going. You continue to do that for the first round until all of the cards have been guessed by one of the teams. You then score the points that are up on each of the cards. Different cards will have different points based on how difficult they are to guess. And that's your score for that round. Then you move to the second round. Well, in the second round, you are only allowed to use one word as a clue. And it can't be anything in the name, obviously. But you're getting them to guess the same cards that you've already done in the first round. You just reuse the same deck of cards. So even though the clue is becoming more difficult to give, everyone already knows what's in the deck.
Yeah.
Can they remember what cards were in the deck? Well, it's challenging because usually there's about 40 or 50 to go through, so you can't necessarily remember all of them off the top of your head.
Which is why having that description is so useful, because round 2 hinges on getting through a lot of cards in round 1.
That's right. Yeah. So then you're just giving one clue, one word for the clue, and then it's the same thing. You go through and everyone takes turns, and you're trying to guess as many cards as you can. Then in round 3, there is no words. I think you can. As it says, you can use some appropriate sound effects. Otherwise, it's all charades and mime. So there's no words at all. You're just miming and acting out whatever it is, trying to get the people to guess. Now, I grabbed this the other night, and it was the first time in ages that all 5 of us sat down. And if I say 5 of us, that's the 5 of my family, my 3 kids, and my wife and I. And it was, I don't even know what, it was just the moon aligned. Everyone was in the room after dinner. I said, "Hey, who wants to play a game?" And out of astonishment, my 2 boys were like, "Yeah, I will play." And I was like, "Oh, wow." Anyway, grabbed it together. The boys were like, "We're on one team. You guys can be on another team." So, they wanted to go with each other.
Could have seen that coming.
My wife has never laughed. Like, I couldn't tell you the last time she laughed as much as she laughed. We were all in hysterics. Everyone was crying and just rolling. The laughing you get when you're half laughing and half kind of exhausted in pain because your sides are just torn up from the giggling and the guffawing that's going on. It was so much fun. It was so much fun, and the dynamic of the silliness of trying to get the questions, the fact that you're trying to mix this memory game with a guessing game and a charade game because you kind of remember the ones that are in there, how much of it's memory, how much of it's listening to the good clues that they're giving, and then just topped off by my 2 boys who are cocky, young males that think that they're the best at everything, just getting so frustrated with each other when they can't get the clues, and my wife just laughing her head off at me trying to be a hungry hippo. Yeah, it's just it's so good. It's so good to read on a piece of paper, like when it says this is describing the game. You kind of read it and go, yeah, it sounds all right. But when you play this game, man, it's phenomenal. Lauren, your experiences?
Oh man, I've never played a game that is so naturally funny and so organically creates inside jokes. And I think that's the thing, right? That you're building and compounding on things that are a little bit funny. And then you get to the next round and they're a lot funny. And then when you're acting it out, they're absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
And this is it's a public domain game called Celebrities. And this is kind of just a boxed, fancier version of it that has maybe more interesting cards. But for decades, people have been, scrawling things on paper and ripping them up and popping them into a hat and playing something similar.
Yeah.
And it's clearly, lasted the test of time for a reason. We had one game, this was years ago, but I think it was about a group of 10, 15 friends. We'd all decided to go get an Airbnb and just spend a weekend together for people, interstate or whatever. And we played Monikers. And look, I'm not going to get into the story, the backstory of this, but basically, when I was in high school, I had a friend. She got lost in the desert on an international school trip. Can't get into it. Just know that that is the background for this. And basically, it was something like Nicolas Cage at Burning Man.
Right.
And that became synonymous with her name. So it would just be like one word, Shannon. People yell, Nicolas Cage, Burning Man. And it's just ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous that a bizarre gesture becomes, for whatever idiosyncratic reason, becomes associated with a string of totally unrelated words and names and situations. And it's just naturally so funny.
Yeah.
I don't think as well that you have to be outgoing to play it. because everyone starts knowing a subset of the cards. So you don't have to do too much for people to get it if you don't want to. So it really gently kind of eases people in, especially because the way the round starts, it's easy to describe things, and then you just have to give a word. And you kind of keep saying the same word, but then changing your tone and inflection in more and more bizarre ways, and with increasing frustration.
Yeah. Or then you get instances where there was one the other night where I think in the first round, Ethan, it was the clue was Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And Ethan was giving it to Brad in the first round. And he said, the big baddie in Ghostbusters. Brad goes, Stay Puft Marshmallow. Boom, they got it.
Yep.
Next round, it was only obviously one word now. Brad has to describe it. He goes,
Baddie.
Ghostbusters. Nothing.
So he was giving his clue back to him.
Yeah. Ethan's sitting there stonewalled going, I don't know what's Ghostbusters. You know, everyone at the table had 100% knew what it was, except for Ethan. And Brad's like, nothing he can do. He's given his one word clue.
Yeah.
You know, like Lauren
Just
said,
glare.
you just keep saying the same word again but louder. Ghostbusters. You know,
Somehow trying to embody a marshmallow while you say the word Ghostbusters, right?
Exactly.
It's just...
Oh dear. And then, like, you know, even when the round ends and they didn't get it, he's like, that was your clue. You gave the clue to me. You know, it's hilarious.
So how many cards come in the game?
Quite a few. Like the game is literally just a deck of cards.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, it's just a deck of cards and an instruction booklet in a box. So it's kind of like that many.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that's got to be like 500.
250?
Maybe,
Oh, really?
you reckon?
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe say 350.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's quite a lot in there.
And there's expansion boxes
Yeah,
as
There's
well.
loads of expansions and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you need to buy them, to be honest. I think one box is
enough.
plenty.
Yeah, but if you want a bit of sort of longevity with the same group of people, you may eventually need to, because I'm just thinking of something like playing Cards Against Humanity with the same people over and over again. It's less funny.
Yeah.
If you're using this, if the same cards keep coming up, it might be funny the second time because it's a throwback to the last time when it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But by the third time, it's like, oh, we need more cards to be able to sort of get some humor out of this.
Yeah.
There's also, I think Shut Up and Sit Down made some of the expansions for this, so I think their cards or their boxes are a bit wackier.
Right.
So maybe you just pick different boxes depending on the groups. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I've also heard people play this game, but you include the people in the room. And
Right, okay. You're trying to describe everyone who's actually
mixtures
sitting
of hilarious and absolutely savage.
there. Fair enough. So that's me, Monikers.
Dan, you've been doing some solo gaming.
Yes.
With the re-implementation of a well-loved game.
Yes, which I missed the boat on, but I think this one's just hit retail. I happened to stumble into Minecraft in the city earlier this week, and I spotted Witchcraft on the shelf, and I grabbed it straight away because I missed Resist when it came out earlier, and this is a re-implementation of the main. I thought it was a re-implementation of the main engine of Resist, but I've been told that it's actually very, very close. Except instead of a war theme, you are in charge of a coven of witches in Witchcraft. However, they're good witches, and the witches are trying to defeat all these, well, they're called missions in the game, but all these big baddies and all these things that keep going wrong in the town. However, the townsfolk have cottoned on to the fact that there may be witches there may be a coven in town, in the Wildegren, which is the name of the village. And so with your witches, you have a choice of whether you take your witchy actions as a hidden witch or as a revealed witch. And there's the revealed. If you do it as a revealed witch, you actually have more abilities. You can do better things. You have greater power to tackle some of these missions and tackle the challenges that tack onto these missions. However, once you take an action as a revealed witch, you then get put in jail, and it gets put aside. Whereas if you do it as a hidden witch, then you get to put it in your discard, and then you cycle through because you're essentially using it as almost like a deck builder game. So the premise is that you start off with 12 witches, but the game actually comes with 24, and so you start by drafting these witches. So you draft 2 at a time, and you choose one to put in just a deck on the side, which you can recruit from at various points later in the game if you have some witch abilities that allow you to do that, and then you choose 12. Now, you're largely choosing the witches that you want to use based on what their abilities are, whether it's a hidden ability or a revealed ability. But because it's a coven, the witches, there are families of witches, there are sisters, and a lot of them will chain together. So there might be 3 Kent sisters, there might be 4 Miller sisters, and some of their abilities will be, well, for every Miller sister in your hand, you might get X amount of additional power. Or if you use this Kent sister, then you may be able to release another Kent sister from prison. And so you kind of draft, and you're almost trying to pair up some of these sisters together so that in your starting deck of 12, when you draw 5 to play with those, you're hoping to get some of the sister witches in the same hand. Then you can chain them together and start playing a few combos, which is really, really cool. And you also start the game by choosing three villages, and the villages, they will have a persuasion track on them. And what you're trying to do is by successfully achieving these missions, and there's 9 missions that you'll have at your disposal, 3 for Act 1, 3 for Act 2, 3 for Act 3, and the difficulty of those actually increases with each act. That if you succeed in one of those missions, then you can influence them, you can increase their persuasion, and each of the 3 villages will have these 2 conviction cards face down, and the conviction card is simply a number between 1 and 6, and there's only one, I think there's only 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 5, and 6, and the rest are all 4s and 3s. So on average, you need to get at least their persuasion level up to more than 7 before you go to trial. And during the course of the game, you can decide at the end of a mission to just, all right, I'm going to go to trial. I think I've earned enough persuasion to get off the hook, and then the villagers will see that we've been doing a great job. They're not going to drown us, and we can all sort of carry on peacefully. At certain points, you might have an opportunity to flip over one of these conviction cards, so you got a better idea of how much persuasion you need to earn on these villagers. But there were certain missions where if you fail, this villager might actually lose some persuasion. So at the end, to win the game, you need to not lose more than 1 mission, and then you need to completely convince or persuade all 3 villages. If you only persuade 2 villages, it's considered a draw. So technically, you didn't lose, which has happened to me twice. If you only persuade 1 of them, and so you didn't have enough persuasion for the other 2, then that's technically a loss. And then if you didn't do any, then it's obviously a loss. So that's kind of what you're working towards. But as with some of these solo games, that's the way to win. But there's about 4, 5, 6 different ways to lose, including losing villages. So certain missions, if you fail, you might have to flip over a village card, and those you lose certain villages to wolves or whatever beasties that crawl out of the forest. And the deck of villagers, there's maybe 7 or 8 different villager cards. They'll have a number on it, and if that number goes over 5 or more, that's it, game over. There's also curses in the game where you start with a deck of 12 witches, but you also have to put 3 curses in there, and you shuffle them through. So when you draw your cards, you don't know what you're going to get. There's also 3 other curses which you can add into the game. If at any point you have to add a curse and there's no curses left, it's game over. If at any point you draw 5 cards to start a hand and they're all curses, it's game over. The curses you can't actually use, all they do is clog up your hand. So the more curses you draw into your deck, the harder it is, because suddenly you might draw 5 cards. 3 of them are curses. You've only got 2 witches that are going to do you any good. And so it gets increasingly difficult. And in terms of playability, it is a difficult game. Like I said, I've only won twice out of the 4 times I've played it. So I'm 50-50, but not winning outright. I've convinced 2 out of the three villages. So there, like I said, there are 3 missions, and you choose which mission you want to tackle. And some of them have a win condition. So if you beat this mission, you'll get this. It might be to recruit another witch. It might be to remove a curse from your deck, which are great. Some of them, instead of having a win condition, will have a fail condition. So if you fail, this will happen. It won't have a win condition, but it will have a fail instead. Some of them will have a choose. I think it's called a choose one. So if you choose this mission, you have to do something. And it might be to add additional challenges to the other 2 missions. So it's like, well, I'd rather not do that, but also at the same time I can't avoid it. And the other option is, it's basically if you don't choose it, it's called not chosen. If you don't choose this mission, then you have to do X, Y, Z. So they're the ones where you feel compelled, well, I have to choose that, because if you don't choose it, you have to add another curse into your deck. So it puts you in there in terms of sort of decisions. There are lots of different decision points in this game, which, despite the fact that I'm only 50-50 winner, and it does feel like a difficult game, I love the fact that there are decisions almost every step of the way. And I think that's one of the criticisms that people have said about of this game, that it is quite difficult. But for a solo game, I never feel as though I'm completely out of it. I always feel as though I can actually do something. So I might have my 5 witches and I'm going to add them up, and I go, okay, well, these 3 witches I'm going to play hidden, which only gets me 6 power. This one, I'm going to have to play it as a revealed. I know I'm going to lose her. She's going to go to jail, but she gives me an additional 4 power. So that gives me 10 power in total. The mission, I need 4 power for that mission. I need 2 power to defeat that wolf. I need 2 power to defeat this mob. And this bird over here, I have to take that bird. I have to take down that bird first, because that bird actually won't let me take any others down until I take that bird down first. So some of the little challenge cards actually block you from completing the mission unless you take care of them first. So, and there's other missions, there's other objectives where, like I said, with the mission, the challenge card might have, if you succeed, you get XYZ, but there's no penalty for not succeeding. So it's like, I can afford to lose that one. I can afford to lose that one, but I have to win this, plus win the mission. I'm good. And then you just go bang, 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 add it all up. Any witch that you've used as a revealed witch, they go to prison. Any witch you use as a hidden witch, you put in your discard, and then you complete the mission. You set a new mission out, you put the new challenges out according to how many it tells you to do, and then you move on to the next round. And like I said, at any time you can go, I think I've got enough. I think I've persuaded that villager enough. I think I've persuaded that one enough. I'm going to call it. Let's go to trial. Let's flip over their cards, see how much persuasion they actually need. And it's like, he needed 8. Cool, I've got 8 there. He needed 7. I've done that. And then that one just turns out to be a 5 and a 6. I needed 11. I couldn't do that one. And yeah, that's it. I mean, the game plays in about maybe 30 to 45 minutes. But like I said, yeah, it's tough, but I really enjoy the crunchy decision making in this. And it's from friend of the show, David Thompson. So it's got a good pedigree. Roger Tankersley and Trevor Benjamin, the other designers, and the artwork. I really like the artwork too. It's cartoony, but it feels like it's got like a gothic kind of style to it as well. So yeah, the artist is Albert Monterey, who hasn't done a whole lot of stuff. He did the artwork for Resist, and also there was a game that came out a couple of years ago, Luna Capital. He did the artwork for that too. So it's cartoony, but it's really, really cool.
So the Witchcraft, you said you've won it a couple of times?
Yeah, well, I won it in terms of I've persuaded 2 out of the 3. So if you convince 2, it's called a draw, but it's not guilty.
Right, okay.
So your valiant efforts against the threats of the village convinced 2 of the jurors to reluctantly rule in your favour. The witches have been released from jail, but you're still considered outcasts within the community. So it's not a total loss.
Yeah. Well, must be loads easier than Resist then, because I have never won it.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming that we're on the same level as two.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah.
No. I mean, the other times I got completely cooked. There was one game where I got stuck with so many curses, and there was nothing left. I think within the flip of a card, I probably was going to lose in 3 different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got completely cooked.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously I've played Resist, but I haven't played Witchcraft. But I love Resist. I think it's the decision space between those, I really want to use that power, but it means it's not going to be in my deck anymore, and then I'm thinning my deck out, and am I going to be able to get it? Like, it's just, yeah.
So with the witches, how you've got the hidden and the revealed witches, what are the 2 elements on the Resist cards?
The same, hidden and revealed.
Hidden and revealed, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
Because they're, you play the resistance. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. So your resistance operatives, going up.
So you're doing a covert operation, or you're doing an overt one, and if it's more powerful with the overt, but then you get
captured or whatever.
Captured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Exactly.
So they haven't strayed too far from that sort of mechanic either.
No. But that's to me, that was the fun decision space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Having a look at those cards and going, I really want to use that powerful power, but is now the right time to use it? I know that it's not going to, it's going to be gone if I use it, or maybe I should just take it easy and use the weaker power, and sure, they've got that, maybe something I need later. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. And quite often, some of the more powerful witches, the revealed witch abilities, it might be to recruit one or recruit two,
Mm,
or you might be able to recruit as many witches as you have curses in your hand.
mm,
So it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna call this mission. I'm gonna fail it because you're allowed to fail one mission. If you fail two, that's it,
mm,
game over.
mm,
I might just fail this mission because I can use this one and reveal that with that witch. But because I got two curses in my hand, I can now recruit two more
mm,
witches,
mm.
and so that'll actually
Build my
boost
deck.
build my deck for the next one. Or it might be that I play this one, I get her ability, and then I also, while she gets locked up, I get to release one witch from jail and put her not in my discard, but on the top of my deck.
Mm,
So I get to choose one of my locked up witches, take the most powerful one, put her on top of my deck, so she's good to go for next game.
mm.
So yeah, some great decisions in there.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal game.
Also, kind of what we were saying before with the coin games, Mitch, if the theme of resist maybe isn't for everyone in terms of
Mm.
dealing with resistance fighters and things, the folklore setting of witchcraft might just be more appealing
Yeah.
to those people in
Yeah,
particular.
definitely. And I like
Absolutely.
the fact that it's a different spin because you're a coven of good witches.
Right.
The village do not trust you, and you're trying to protect the village from all these different missions. Trying to, there's wolves in there, or there's different creatures. There's one that's like some slimy creature at the bottom of the well, which has completely ruined the water supply and stuff. So you're trying to fix the village, but you're trying to do it covertly so they don't lock you up.
So they never try to drown you to prove you're a witch or anything like that.
No.
Not even taking this seriously.
Probably a good thing.
There's on GameFound at the moment, Operation Barclay. I think you could add Witchcraft to the pledge at one point for that. I don't know if you still can.
Okay.
But that line of games, Resist, Witchcraft. Operation Barclay is 2-player, so it's more kind of like Watergate-esque.
Nice. Yep.
But you can pick those up potentially.
Yeah. So what I'm pretty sure Witchcraft has only just hit retail in Australia, just this week. The guy at Mind Games said, "Oh, you're lucky. This is the first one I've sold." So yeah, and I've been keeping an eye out for it. I hadn't seen it until this week.
It was Mind Games, was it?
Mind
Because you
Games.
said Minecraft at the start, so I thought,
Oh, did I?
You've walked into a pixelated world.
Yep.
All right. So Witchcraft, definitely one I have to give a try, Dan. Be adding that to my wish list, I reckon.
Nice.
The one I wanted to talk about is one that I got to play relatively recently with some friends and was shocked to see that it's actually never been spoken about on the podcast before, I think. Which is crazy to me because it feels like a classic card game, and that is Coloretto.
That's the one with the chameleon on the box?
Front?
Yeah.
I know nothing about it.
No, I've never ever heard anything about it or played it or anything.
So it was published in 2003. It's been around for a hot minute. It's essentially just a set collection game. It's really, really simple. And it's so Moorish and so replayable though. It's the kind of thing that you can just go again, go again, go again. So essentially how the game works is you are trying to just collect sets of different colors of chameleons. Say we're playing a 4-player game. There's going to be 4 rows of cards that are appearing. And on your turn, you can either take a row and then you're out of the round, or you can pick up a card and add it to one of the rows.
Right.
That's it. Rows can have max 3 cards in each row. And so once it's at its max, you can not add it to it, but you can still take that one. And so there's kind of there's a lot of screwage in this game. There's James is collecting orange and I pull an orange. That row already has an orange. So you best believe it's not going in that row. It's going in the one that's got the thing that he doesn't want. Because the way scoring works in this game is you're going to be collecting sets. And at the end of the game, you are going to pick 3 colors and you're going to score those sets positively. And then every other color you're going to score as negative points, if you have any. So you really want to collect a lot of 3 and none of any other color. So James is collecting orange, but I'm going to give him a brown because that's going to then score him negative points. And then he has the decision of, do I take this because I want the orange? Do I go? And you don't have to take a row that's completely full. So sometimes one color comes out and you're like, yep, I'm out of the round. So there's a bit of push you luck as well, because if everyone goes out early, you're like, all right, I could draw 2 more cards, or I could take this one card that's pretty good. You're like, nah, I'll go again. You draw another one and add it to your own row. And you're like, push for a third. And sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it really doesn't. But that's essentially the whole game. You're just picking up cards, adding them to rows, taking a row, keep going until you basically go through the deck. There are other little cards like wilds, which you get to assign to a color at the end of the game. Those are amazing, and things that just like give you points. There are two ways you can do endgame scoring. One is that the more cards you have, the more points you get. But the other side is, say you have 1, 2, or 3 cards, you'll get more points. And then it starts to go down again. So you want to have 3 or 4, but not more than that. Or if it's one of the colors that are going to score you negatives, well, now you're trying to get more because you want it to drive down. That's the whole game. It's really, really good. And I just thought that it needed to be spoken about on the podcast because it is so devilishly simple. Of my friends that don't play any games, don't have tolerance for much in the way of complexity for games, always happy to play it. It's so easy to teach. And they hadn't, I think it was a year since I played it with her last, and I pulled it out and I explained the rules for about 30 seconds. And she's like, yep, remember that, we're good to go.
Yeah, right.
Love those games.
Yeah, they're good. And
it's just a quick teach, and let's just get into it.
And it's been around for ages, and it seems to be a bit of a stayer. So there's got to be something there that keeps it ticking over, right?
Absolutely. It comes in a box the size of 6 Nimt.
Yes.
So it's a whack it in your bag. If you're the kind of person that takes games to work to play with colleagues, very easy to do that. Very easy to explain to people.
How many does it play to?
Ooh, great question. I think 5.
Okay.
There's also a big box version of it called Coloretto. I don't know anything about Coloretto,
Right,
but it's got the DNA of Coloretto in it, I think, because they're the same designer.
5 is correct, Lauren. I've just looked it up, and you are correct. 2 to 5.
Yeah, cool.
2 to 5. I don't play it at 2. I played the 2-player version, and it's just rubbish.
Right.
It doesn't have the zest of screwing people over and the push your luck. It just loses a lot of that at 2. I would only recommend it for 3 to 5. But between 3 and 5, I've played it all play counts. It does scale very well. Honestly, not much else to say other than that. It's just that Coloretto, if you are after another little light card game,
I am always after light card games. I think I might have to add this one.
It's so great. I'll bring it to PlayCon, and if anyone wants to just give it a quick whirl, I think we might even have it in the library.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a
so interesting mix of sizzles. Some light ones, a medium weight solo.
Lighter fare than usual, though.
Yeah, it's great.
Oldies.
Get Jeff back on, balance
some
us
oldies.
out.
Yep.
Yeah, some oldies.
Something for everyone.
Indeed.
That's what we offer here at the Board Game Barbecue Podcast.
Except super heavy, over the top games, because we didn't do anything in that realm. So sorry, Def.
Sorry, Def. You can skip this one.
No soup for you.
All right. Well, some quick announcements. PlayCon. All sold out.
Woohoo!
Phenomenal effort. Unbelievable.
Amazing effort to the team organizing it. It's been an unbelievable push. It's going to be such an awesome event. There is a wait list, so you can jump on that if you missed out on tickets. But for those of you that are attending PlayCon, be sure to download the Aftergame app, the Google Store, Apple App Store. Once you've registered, you can head over to events, find PlayCon there. You can use that to sign up for games that people are playing. You can put up games yourself to try to get people to play with. Check out the library. All manner of exciting things. We cannot wait to have you guys there.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome.
The next Brisbane Board Game Barbecue event is going to be on the 17th of August at the Parkview Hotel, which, if I'm not mistaken, is where it was for the last event.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So
sure that's right. One. Yep, in the city there.
And the great kebab shop just down the road as well.
Oh, yeah. Lovely staff at that kebab shop.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 rate. So grab your tickets, grab your kebabs. Not at the same time. Games and kebabs, not a good mix.
Kebab first.
Yeah. So be sure to check that out. Alrighty, so now on to the question of the pod. Last week's question was all about how people learn games. It was, what is your favorite way to learn games and why? Dan, would you like to read out some of our community responses?
Yeah, gladly. There were some great responses too. On Facebook, Ingrid Ingrid Wright wrote, I usually start with the rulebook, then, if it's a heavy game, watch a video to answer those last few questions while struggling to stay awake generally. If I'm learning a game at a game day or a friend's house, I'll watch a video the night before and hopefully help the teach go smoothly. That's a good egg. That's what I actually do. If I know someone's going to teach me a game, I'll try and just swat up a little bit on it, which is how I managed to beat Def the first time he taught me Kanban AV, because I watched Paul Grogan's video the night before. And so then Def was teaching me. I'm like, oh, okay. And I was so what does this do again? And then I just came out and whooped him and Dimmy.
Absolutely hustled him.
Yeah.
Were they drinking?
No.
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 Must have been heroin.
All above board. Michael Roberts said, I like to learn by first working out how to play, video, rulebook, whatever, then playing it a wrong number of times, feeling like something isn't quite right. He uses your method, Mitch.
Yeah.
Then eventually work out what I was doing wrong when playing with someone who had played before, and they say, oh, no, it doesn't work like that.
That's exactly my strategy. Like, I'm surprised he's been listening to me talk on the podcast for too long, maybe.
So. And Suds McDuff said, I find reading rulebooks boring, so I'll watch how to play videos like Rodney Smith numerous times. Then I'll flick through the rulebook, then play a game with the rulebook handy. If I'm heading to a mate's house for a new game, I'll watch how-to vids to help them with the teach. A lot of considerate people in our community. I'll just quickly hit Instagram as well. VT Board Gamer said, for me, watching a rules explanation video as I set up the game in front of me. This way I can not only watch the video and learn from the teach, but also see the game close up and personal. This lets me check any details of the board game. I've done that a few times, actually. I've set up my phone and I'm watching it as I'm setting it up. So they might say, okay, well, this is something, and I'm actually, as they're saying it, I'm taking it out of the box. I'm familiarizing myself with it. Because quite often I'll read a rule book and I go, and then take the conflict cards, and I'm just like, hang on, which cards?
And they don't have a picture.
Which cards with the conflict cards? So I got to flick back to page 1 to see where this one's a conflict card and this one's a. So yeah, I find if I'm setting up the game as I'm starting to watch the playthrough, things sink in a lot quicker for me. I'm very visual like that.
And Mitch,
yeah,
do you want to read out some of the others?
I can't watch videos. Because I'm like Ingrid. I'm like, they're like, oh, overview of this game. I'm asleep. Like it's that quick. It's the Valium kicks in. So from Discord, we have Spenny who says, I love when somebody teaches me and I keep saying, let's just play the entire teach. And then they blame them for not teaching the whole game when I dedicated my entire strategy to a misunderstanding of the rules. I think that's a good way to go. You can't complain about that, can you?
Great strat.
Great strat. All right, let's dive in. Says, I love watching teach and playthroughs on YouTube, especially if it's all in one video, the way Monique and Naveen do it sometimes. I can't quite pinpoint what they do, but I always learn the games so well from them specifically.
Yeah.
You talk about not being able to watch rules videos. I cannot watch playthroughs. I'll watch Monique and Naveen are awesome.
Yes.
I might watch their teach of the game sometimes, but I cannot watch a playthrough. Unless I'm really unsure of how something works or about a rule, and I might scrub through parts of it. But
you see, I can't do that either because I'm like, I don't know how this rule works. Let me just check somewhere online. I'm like, well, A, what are the chances they're making the same mistake that I'm making or have got it in there? And B, I've got an hour and 30 long playthrough. How am I going to find the 10 seconds that I need to verify the one rule that I'm stuck on?
Yes, and some of the best videos on YouTube, they actually have it broken down into chapters, the timestamps, or the actual the scrub points. Yeah. So that are labeled, so you know exactly where to go back to. Because you're right, that's hard to find.
I need a channel that have those breakpoints, and the one that says, "Mitch, the info you're looking for is here." So if someone out there does videos, can just insert that into every video they do, that'd be great. Hells says, I'm a bit dyslexic, so just reading the rulebook doesn't always work best for me. And also, if the book is about 20 pages long with rules, it's not always easy to hunt down the info I need if I'm in the middle of a game. I will set up the game on the table, watch the teach and a bit of the playthrough for the first round. Then I'll start playing my own game for a bit to make sure that I really understand the basics. Then I'll go back to the video and watch more until I feel I've got pretty much everything I need. So Hells is just all over the shop. I think that's what she wanted to say.
Whatever works for your health, whatever works.
She's just that hyped up on games. She's just doing whatever just falls on the table at the time. Uberface says, my favorite way to learn is having either Def or Harry teach me, both excellent teachers. And we know he's lying because Def, yes, Harry, no. Appalling, no.
Questionable.
Shout out Harry. He gets his iPad and he'll make notes and prep for
Oh,
the
really?
teach. When he taught me
Wow.
Voidfall, he'd kind of broken down the teach. Outstanding.
He's never
So-
made that much effort for me.
No, me either.
Stu
Make of that what you will, Mitch.
on X/Twitter, Stu McLeay says, multi-hand run through for sure. If it's got solo roos, I'm unlikely to try those until I've got a good feel for the basics. Multi-hand helps me grok the impact of player count on a game's flow too. Days of Ire, for example, is great at 2, but feels strained at 3 or 4. Interesting. And Yabba Dabba Doo says, I usually play middle plus Euro games. For me, it's 2 steps rule. 1, tutorial and playthrough, if possible. 2, rulebook. For me, the playthrough gives me a basic understanding of the game mechanics, and then I delve into the details described in the rules. So there you go. I will say, seeing as it's our objective to promote GMT games and coin games as much as possible, one thing that they do in the coin series that I think is absolutely phenomenal, and I don't know why more people don't do it. With the player aid, you've got all your actions and available things that you can do on the player aid, and every single one has a indexed number next to it, so that if you go, I'm not sure how this works, you can go straight to the index in the rulebook to the exact spot where that rule is explained and detailed in the rulebook. So all of these, things about, I hate having to flip through the rulebook trying to find where the specific rule I'm after is. It just seems so simple. Why doesn't everybody do that? On the player aids, have a rules reference number that matches up with where that rule is in the rulebook.
You need that for GMT because this one's on page 35. This one's on page 632. This one's on page...
There kind of is a little bit of that, but that's not the point.
It's a tome.
It's a good system.
It's not a book. Turn to volume 3.
Yeah, Mr. President. Oh
Mr. President, I think I had 11 rulebooks.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. Other things, Distilled, a much simpler game, but what it did have was at the back of the rulebook is commonly misplayed or misinterpreted rules.
Yeah,
so
right.
It just has a little list of things that people are likely to get wrong, which Uwe has done as well in some of his games.
Witchcraft has FAQ at the back of it as well.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. FAQs, commonly missed rules, examples, and, dear God, pictures of components. When you have them, how many rule books they say, well, get this out. And it's like, nowhere does it show a picture of what that thing is.
Yeah, that's one thing that GMT doesn't do very well. Jules was specifically having a big spray the other day because he was trying to play Liberty or Death, which is one of the coin games. And he goes, it took me like 3 hours just to try and figure out how to set the game up because there were no pictures of any of the pieces. So I was like,
if the cardstock is wafer thin, I don't think they're sprucing for pictures in the rule books. I don't think it's on the cards for GMT.
When we were given a prototype of Galactic Cruise, I noticed their rulebook had heaps of pictures and explanations and examples for a lot of those, which I think for a
bigger game,
a game that's on the heavier side, is super useful. Because again, if you're someone who has trouble reading rulebooks but picks things up visually, it's such a game changer to actually go, here's the rule and here's an example of how it works. And you can see completely that out in front of you. It just clicks so much quicker.
Yeah, definitely makes a difference when you can know how to play the game.
I mean, it bloats the rulebook out. You go, wow, it's a 45-page rulebook. But when you look at it and go, actually, everything is written down, broken down visually as well as with the rules. Yeah, it's great. Great.
And as long as the examples are clearly marked as examples, so if you get it, you don't have to read through and reread stuff you already understand. You can say, okay, well, I can skip this. I get that.
Have we moved from how do you like to learn games into what do you like and hate about rulebooks?
Honestly,
that's the new question of the pod.
Great way to learn.
It's Paul Grogan's influence.
Yeah.
So our new question of the pod, inspired by Mitch's sizzle of Monikers and just the absolute belly laughs at the frustration of his sons just not being able to describe and remember marshmallows and Ghostbusters and all sorts of shenanigans, is tell us about a game or gaming experience that had you in stitches.
Yep.
So love to hear your responses to that.
And they don't have to be all like funny party games. Might have been an instance where, one of your podcast hosts has tipped water all over the game in the middle of the game or something like that. And Sasquatch.
Or it's a game of throw burrito and you were in literal stitches from a piece flying at you. Tell us about those too.
Literal stitches. Yeah, we've had a few community members require
Medical
first
attention.
aid treatment after taco
Jungle
goat,
speed. Oh, yeah, taco catching.
goat cheese
Yeah.
pizza.
Yeah.
I say goat cheese. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know how it goes.
Goat cheese and pizza.
So we'd love to hear your responses to the question. So just want to give a community shout out and thank you to our new Patreon, Paul Bedford. And thank you to our patrons who support this show. If you want to support this podcast, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue. Sign up, get access to exclusive podcasts like the one that Dan and I recently recorded about solo tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
That we record just for our Patreons. But there are plenty of other ways to support the podcast without donating. One of the ways, just tell your mates. Or go on Apple Podcasts, leave a star rating or review for us, or Spotify's new star rating system. You can also get involved in the Board Game Barbecue by joining Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and our thriving and ever so active Discord community. If you want to leave us a review on the Apple Podcasts app, Dan will recite it in rap form if you leave him some lyrics to spit for us.
We've had raps, we've had Portuguese, someone left a haiku before, we've had limericks. Bring it on, people.
Next time I want to see you do it drilling style.
Drilling style?
Yeah, you're a bit old to understand what drilling is, but you got to look it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, I'll Google it. I'll Google it on the Toctics. Is that what the young kids are using these days?
Toctics.
Yeah, on the interwebs.
Yep.
If you want to get damn viral on the Toctics, leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app. But yeah, really just thank you so much to our awesome Patreons and community.
And welcome aboard, Paul.
All right, now on to the swearing of an oath. Mitch, how did you go with your oath?
I didn't do it. No. Well, I need to say, I did my oath of last week, or last pod, which was to play a Guest of Robin Hood, which is a entry-level 2-player coin-inspired game from GMT, which is Robin Hood insurging against the Sheriff of Nottingham. And it was loads of fun. I really enjoyed it. I actually think it's very, very good for people wanting to get into coin games that want to take a step before getting into the full thing.
Is that one of the games on their platform, their online platform?
Negative.
Damn, because I wanted you to teach it to me.
Yeah, no. Well, there may be a version on some of the other online platforms. I have to have a look.
Okay.
But no, it's not on Rally the Troops. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It cuts down the number of operations that are available, so it's a lot more streamlined. The objectives are a lot sort of more simpler. Obviously, it's only 1v1, so there's only 2 factions competing against each other. And I destroyed Jules out of the park, so I would be remiss of me to leave that out, right?
Absolutely.
How far into the lore does it go? Does it have all the other characters, Merry Men and all that sort of
It
stuff?
has
or is it really
Merry
just
Men.
faction v faction?
It has Robin Hood, it has Merry Men, but it doesn't have specific Merry Men.
Gotcha.
So the Robin Hood is essentially one of the Merry Men, but then Robin Hood can do certain actions and things that the other Merry Men can't. And it's kind of a cool, which is something different to the other coin series, is Robin Hood is hidden from the sheriff player. So you kind of always on your toes going, I'm not sure if that area is safe, because if it's just Merry Men, they can't do much to me there. But if Robin Hood is in that group, then that could be worse than I think it is.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. There's also this mechanic where you're with the sheriff. One of the things you're trying to do to get into is to get your caravans into Nottingham so that you can get the money that is coming in. You're bringing in taxes and things from the colonies, regions, suburbs, areas around, and you're trying to get them in, and getting money is obviously good for the sheriff. But Robin Hood can rob those carriages as they're coming in. So you can put hidden traps into the carriages as well. So then Robin Hood is not just about, and that's where Jules went wrong. He got in a situation where he was like, oh, all my merrymen are here. So he's like, I'm going to attack this wagon, and it was trapped. So all these merrymen went to prison, and then he had a very hard time getting out of there. So don't overcommit yourself to an attack when it could be a bunch of traps. So it's good, and it's got like a push pull mechanic. So the victory condition marker is one marker, and all the way to one end is a victory for the sheriff, all the way to the other end is a victory for Robin Hood. So you're constantly pulling back and forth as you're having successes and failures. That token's swaying back and forth between the two players. So it's good. Guess to Robin Hood, it was very much fun. The other one is the Seventh Citadel, and I haven't lost my disdain for that game yet, so I haven't tried it. Next, moving on.
Hang in there, Mitch. All right, don't sell yours like Def did. Hang in there.
Did he sell it without even playing it?
I think so.
Oh my gosh! No, I'm going to try it again. I am going to try it again, but it does. Yes, I still have to keep drinking soft drinks or sugary saccharin something to get the bitter taste out of my mouth from the tutorial.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm wondering whether my experience having played Seventh Continent helped me with that tutorial, which is not an excuse on the game, because you're right. If it's brutally difficult as a tutorial...
Yeah, and I'm not sure it is.
It really needs to.
I'm fully aware that there's a very highly likely that I am just bad at it. But it just turned me off a little bit is all.
Yeah.
So, and that might be my fault. I'm not saying it's the game's fault, but I've got to find the motivation to get around to doing it again.
Well, if you haven't played it by the time PlayCon rolls around, maybe I can.
Yeah, we'll go through it.
We'll be too bloody busy.
Probably.
Yeah. Although I am staying in Sydney an extra day, so maybe we could work something out.
Alrighty, Dan.
No, I did not get Ezra and Nehemiah to the table, much as I wanted to. In fact, after lunch today, I even put my beautiful Hyper Viper mat on the kitchen table, and with the intention of playing it. And no sooner had I turned my back than the boys set up Hero Quest, and Jack was reading the rules, and he was reading some of the scenarios, and he was trying to DM a game for Oliver, and it just warmed my heart too much to go get off the table. So I retired to the study and I played some more Witchcraft instead. So Ezra and Nehemiah will have to live to fight another day, but I am going to double down. I'm going to not just double down, I'm going to triple down with 3 little box games that I picked up this week. So you may recall I sizzled, probably about a year and a half ago, I sizzled Fable Fruit by Friedman Freeze, which is it's a Fable game, and he also has, I picked up 3, I think it's the only 3 in his Fast Forward series. He loves the F word, Friedman Freeze. There's Fear, Fortress, and Flee. And all of his Fast Forward games, they're called Fable games. But the Fast Forward game is basically you open the deck, you put it on the table, and you go. The very first card you flip over are the rules, and then you start to play, and then about the 5th or 6th card down is another set of rules, and then about another 10th or 14th card is another set of rules. And they ease you into the game, but then they sometimes change the rules. This rule now overwrites that one. And the idea is, the premise is you work your way through the entire deck of cards. And at various points, so I checked out Flee, just briefly, and Flee is a 4-player game. So I'm going to have to tee something up, or possibly 2-player game where you control 4 players, and they are 4 main characters from Alice in Wonderland. So there's the Mad Hatter, there's Alice, I think it's Tweedledum, and I can't remember the last one. And there's a monster that moves around, but it sits in front of you. And at any time, if it's your turn and the monster is in front of you, it's game over. And so you need to use cards as you're drawing them to skip the person who has the monster, so it's not their turn when the monster's in front of them. Or you can move cards so that you can move the monster around a little bit, so that when it is that person's turn, they no longer have the monster. And it's a completely cooperative game. There's another game that's called Fear, which is related to ghosts and numbers. And as the numbers come out, as the game ends, you no longer use those numbers, but now the numbers in the deck are new numbers, new abilities, and they're higher numbers. So the level of difficulty increases and the game objectives change. And the last one is called Fortress, which is something about attacking fortresses. And then again, as the game progresses, you end a round, some cards get removed, and then now because there's still a big deck of cards to be played, new rules get added, new multiple fortresses might be in play. I'm really looking forward to sinking my teeth into all of these. So My new oath is going to play the fast forward series, which is Fear, Fortress, and Flee, and it's going to be freaking fun.
I love it. I definitely want to try more of his games. I've only played a couple, but they're all pretty unique. He's got his own flavor to design for sure. Now, my oath, I kind of goofed with this because I made the oath that I was only going to play the same game for a month, forgetting that I'd had the penultimate and final Gloomhaven sessions of our campaign scheduled and a game night with my brother and sister-in-law where we played Distilled in the calendar. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to half-ass, doing this. I want to full-ass it because if I'm going to make an ass of myself, I'm going to make a full ass of myself.
And to be fair, you're on tonight because Jules pulled the pin. You're filling in for Jules.
That's true. So I have to wait until those events are done. So it's probably going to have to wait until after PlayCon because there's going to be too many things. But I have landed on a game.
Ooh.
And it ended up being a toss between Ultimate Railroads and Spirit Island. I've landed on Spirit Island because I can play it two-handed solo, and I haven't digged into that box enough. So I did decide on a game, so I'm happy about that. So that is a after PlayCon oath.
So if you're going to only play Spirit Island for a month, how many games do you anticipate that you might be able to get done?
I reckon probably only one multiplayer. I feel like the rest are going to be solo, but I reckon at least 15 is what I'm going to shoot for.
You should be able to get some good combinations going.
At least 15 is what I'm going to shoot for because I feel like once you get into the rhythm, and if I can leave it set up on the table, you just bang go and smash out the game. And I've mostly played it two-handed solo, so I'll be interested to try it true solo.
Okay.
Because I've heard it plays pretty different. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I will double down because Dan tripled down. So if I didn't double down, which is how pathetic would that be? So I am going to make an oath. I've not thought yet what I'm going to make an oath about.
You're on mute, Mitch.
Sorry, I'm going to pull up what's right.
You can borrow from my oath if you want, the one that I've put in for my next.
Oh, what was yours? Attend PlayCon. Have fun.
I'm going to attend PlayCon.
Mm-hmm.
Second half might be more difficult.
I can't do my oath. I'm coming back before PlayCon. I'll be on the pod again, so I can't even make a PlayCon related oath.
You're on again before PlayCon?
Yeah, I'm on the 7th. Geez. All right. My new oath. I was thinking about top 10 games, and I was talking to someone recently about how often do you replay your favorite games? And I've not gotten the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Sorry. I've not got Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective to the table this year. And it's my number one game of all time. And that's a really cozy one that I can set up. Setup takes 2 seconds, and James and I can play across a few evenings. So I think that's going to be my oath to get done in the next 2 weeks before I'm on the pod again, just because you gotta play your favorite games. How can I call it my number one game if I've not, tabled it in 2024?
Yeah.
Think about
it's
that,
usually
right?
around this time of the year that I start thinking I need to play them just so I can decide whether they still deserve to be there by the time our top 10 episodes roll around at the end of the year. So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So that's going to be my oath to table my number one game, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, before I'm next on the pod.
Cool.
Fair enough.
That's all she wrote.
Alrighty.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure, mixed with some rabble raising, as promised, at the top of the pod.
The pleasure was all yours, Lauren.
Rabbles and races were had. All right. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll see you all at PlayCon.
Bye.
Bye.